All right, round two. Morning. How y'all doing? So as you can see, there is a stat sheet again in front of you. I think I got the software figured out, at least close as possible to what I could do here. So today, what I want to talk about is the first section of the Florida Trail. All of this right in here. As I hinted at the last video, I thought this would be a really fun kind of breakdown format to go through, to take section by section, because each of these days has a story. And with this in front of me, I can kind of go down and talk about what that story is for each day, get a little in depth, um, have a visual to represent what it is. So this is kind of what I want to do moving forward with the Hike in America. I said that again last time, but this is really what I feel like excited about. Getting to tell the story section by section, day by day. You get to see the miles. You get to hear all the stories. So let's try it out. I think my video is better than the last one. We can hope. It doesn't look like I'm as glitchy, so I also can see myself this time. That's good. So, Florida Trail, right over here. Start of hiking season 2021. Very, very awesome. So you can do the Florida Trail in early months because of winter conditions in Florida. Pretty warm. It was still very cold at points, but warm-ish. So the first day we got down to Florida, not the first day, but the first day we got to the trail, we had to get a ride from a suburb or something or a sprawl of Miami. And that was about a 2 or 3 hour ride down. So I think we got to the trailhead kind of at 9 or 10. Not early morning. We couldn't find a ride that would take us there that early. So we got to Big Cypress Swamp pretty much as soon as we could. And once we got to the swamp, we didn't really have many plans. We just knew we needed to step off some miles. So we didn't really know what the swamp was going to be. We'd heard levels of the water were pretty high, so we knew that was going to be a factor going in there. But we were just going to let the trail dictate to us what it wanted us to do. So, as you can see, we ended up doing like right underneath 17 miles the first day. There was a campsite at the only raised portion of the ground, like directly at this mileage marker. So the first 10 miles going into the trail of Big Cypress kind of intermixed between, it was a lot more dry land than wet. You weren't fully in the swamp yet, but you still had some swamp stepping. So we just did as much as we can that we felt comfortable with. If we would have pushed past 17, the next campsite would have been, I think it was like 5 to 7 miles of pretty much knee high wading through there. So we would have been in the swamps at night and didn't want that. So that brings us into day two. Day two, 37.9 miles. Aggressive. Very aggressive. So what we did this day, this is kind of going to be unique for maybe our year. There might come another year that these factors are in play. Not the same, of course, but there might be closures for different reasons. So day two, we powered. We powered through the swamp. We just kept pushing. We just kept pushing miles through, and eventually, before we knew it, we were done. That was a really beautiful day. That was really good. We woke up super early, stepped off the miles in the swamp super early, and just we were bubbly. We were bubbly with energy. We were literally wading in water, knee to sometimes waist deep, for almost the entirety of the day. For the first, I don't know exactly what the mileage mark is, but first 20 miles, maybe a little less. And then when you pop out of Big Cypress Swamp, you pop out onto something called um, I 95, I 95, I 90. You cross an interstate. And usually you can walk straight across into the Seminole Reservation and continue the Florida Trail there. We couldn't. We could not do that because it was closed for the vid reasons, the vid 19 as we can call it. So couldn't do that. So we had planned a reroute, kind of anticipating that, but the reroute was a lot of road walk. If you watch that video, you'll see it was an aggressive road walk. So day three, woke up from a kind of stealthy spot on the road walk. After listening to alligators, like baby alligators make these laser sounds all night. So we slept too close to a canal, I think. Um, and we just had road all day. We knew we were going to have road all day, kind of accepted our fate. We got burnt. We got burnt to a crisp. the sun was really beating down on us this day. And since it was a road that didn't have much information around it, we didn't really know where our water sources would be. Even though you have a lot of swamp and brackish water in Florida, um, sometimes you don't want to drink that type of water. You don't know. So we didn't really know our water sources. We weren't confident. So we tried to make our water last as much as possible. We just walked a busy road all day, got burnt, had some jokes along the way. It was fun. It was fun. Me and Hardy really just enjoyed being out on trail. At day 3, you're just still feeling the bubbles of being on trail and just having a good old time. You're just having a blast. So day 3, we ended up connecting back into the Florida Trail. So if let's see how I can do this. Oh, it's kind of mirrored, isn't it? Huh? So I'm gonna have to do everything backwards. So geez, I don't know if I can do this. So if the Florida Trail is over here, the route we took was this, 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 and then this to connect because of the Florida Trail came up. So it was more circuitous, but I hope I did that well. This was like a mirrored thing, so that's gonna be fun to see. Um, Very circuitous, but that's what we had to do to keep walking. So we got back into the dike portion of the trail. So when it came out of the Seminole Reservation, the Florida Trail begins on a kind of elevated dike, and that's where we reconnected into. We wanted to push farther, but by the time we got to the dike, these miles were catching up with us. The last 3 miles of that day to get to reconnect into the Florida Trail were pretty tough. It's aggressive. It's aggressive to go after these mile days, especially on pavement. Pavement's going to break your feet and your body down really hard. So, by the time we got to the dike, we were just beat. Hardy sent me down to the water to get water for camp, and you could hear the gators, and it was like very ominous, like dipping your hand in a canal that big gators are in, but you need the water. So that was fun. So February 4th, 29 miles. This kind of is the area that my knee really started acting up. I have an old ice hockey injury that sometimes the ligaments and tendons around my knee start to, at least a lot of the time when I initially break into hiking season each year, they get really tight and they don't want to do the effort that I'm trying to put them through. So day 4, I started getting a little limp. The swelling wasn't at the point it was yet once we got down into these days a little bit. But it was starting to tell me I was doing a lot of very quick use for very little acclimation. But day 4 was mostly canal walking. Pretty cold canal, actually. We were still February 4th, so we actually got hit by a cold snap right around here. Thankfully, we did because we met a farmer that had property right along the canal, and he said without the cold snap, there were hikers that had came through earlier that year that were just running from the mosquitoes. So luckily, we got hit by the cold snap, but it was still pretty frigid. And it was canal walking all day. So I don't remember the exact names of each of those canals. You can check my videos for that. But the canal itself that we were first on was pleasant, kind of 2-track mixed with kind of single-track hiking. And then I think it connected into the Little Miami Canal towards the town of Clewiston, as you see. This is when it got funky funk. When it connected into these other canals, sometimes there was no trail. You were supposed to walk the canal. So, the canal was here, and then there was a road here. But you want to walk the trail, and the trail is saying it's the canal. Would have just been easier to walk the road, honestly, but purist mentalities, rough mentality there. You just walk the canal, and it was like little things. It wasn't super hard walking because it's not a lot of elevation, but it was hard in the sense of the ground was very brittle, if that makes sense. Not the ground, like you're not going to sink through, but the foliage on top, you didn't know how your footfalls were going to be. So, you kind of had to walk like bow footed every so often. So, that was a good day. And if you see, our miles weren't as high as these other days. That's partly because we started feeling the acclimation of miles, but also because of where the trail was routing us into. So Clewiston is the first town on the Florida Trail that you can feasibly walk into if you're going, I believe, westbound around Lake Okeechobee. Yes, I don't know for sure on the east because that's where it splits. But in this window from like, I don't know, mile 25, so 5 extra miles there for, there's about a 15-mile window you're not allowed to camp around Clewiston. Usually you can. So usually you can get a little closer to Clewiston, but something we learned again, the dam that you walk on around Lake Okeechobee to the west was closed for construction. So we actually, this day, day 4, we actually walked up to the dam to try to get some extra miles in and find a legit campsite along the dam. But when we got there, it had said all these closures, and we had a map system that had some comments about it being potentially closed, but we wanted to check for ourselves. So that was a bummer. And then there was no legal place to camp around there. So what we ended up doing is we hit the dam and then just walked back down trail. We had been seeing some stuff on the canal that we were registering in our heads as a potential backup campsite. We just really didn't want to do that because it was like an extra mile, mile and a half back. Um, my videos might say half mile, mile. I don't know. I'm basing it off of memory here. So it was an extra walk back that we didn't want to do. I didn't really want to do. My knee was pretty brutal. So we walked back and kind of just like tucked ourselves into a windbreak and slept in a kind of field, I guess. It was beautiful. That night was actually really beautiful. We cowboy camped underneath the stars, and it was really pretty. But it was also really cold. We had to wake up early the next day to break camp and try to get into a Nero day. So as you see, yellow bar, that means that it was a Nero day. When we woke up in the morning, we got up pretty early. I think we were hiking by 5 or 6 a.m. And we got all our road miles done. It was 11.2 road miles, pure road. I mean, it was the best route you could possibly take. With the dam closed going into Clewiston, they had you on these back roads. So it wasn't terrible. It just also wasn't great. Um, but by the time we got to Clewiston, we were pretty happy. I was super happy to give my knee a break. And we rolled in there. We instantly got a Cuban sandwich at this little mom and pop Cuban shop, which was Mamma Mia, so good. So we got a Cuban sandwich there. Checked into the motel where when we were going to check into the motel, it was still early morning, and there were like 3 cop cars out front. And so like we're poking our head around because hikers usually try to get the cheaper motels, and cheaper motels usually mean, I don't know, it's gonna mean some unsavory elements sometimes. So um, when we got there, 3 cop cars were there, and they were eyeballing us pretty hard. Like, what are these people doing? I think there's some awareness around the Florida Trail in these communities, but still, Florida in its essence and its very nature is kind of all over the place. So there was a little skepticism, but then we just started talking to them and asking them, "Hey guys, is it safe to stay here? Like, what should we do?" And I guess it was just their meeting spot, or they didn't want to tell us the real reason. I don't know. So we were able to check in, commence our first Nero. So our first Nero, walked back to the joint to get another Cuban sandwich, rested, uploaded videos, communicated with all loved ones. I think at this day too, I called Magpie in a Florida Trail parking lot asking her why I was in Florida and why she wasn't there with me. um, yeah, so that's kind of the feel. That's kind of the feel of the first 5 days of hiking season 2021. First 5 days of the Florida Trail. I can't say props enough to my man Hardy for joining me on this trail. It would have been a beast without him. It was a beast in its own right, but without Hardy, I would have had a tough time. I'm a people person. I love hiking around others, and that's what really gives me joy and strength when doing these miles. And couldn't have asked for a better partner. So it was awesome stepping those miles off with him. And I sometimes feel guilt. I'm going rambling past the just thing, but I sometimes feel guilt that I wasn't present enough for him because I had all of this to continue to do the rest of the year. So my mind was always like down the pipeline a little bit, if that makes sense. Of course, I was still present, but I wish I was more present for him. So, Hardy man, if you see this, hope you're doing well, man. Love you. And now I'm just going on a ramble. But yeah, that is our first section video. I hope you guys liked it. I might throw in some photos here about the section. I might play around with it. We're gonna just grow together with this format, find tweaks that we like together. I don't know. It's an ever-growing format. It's not set in stone. We're just gonna kind of play with it and see where it goes from there. So actually, I could go past. I could go into this Nero. Um, yeah, because that's 7 days, and then this would be about 7 days. Not over yet. Sorry, y'all. Let's go into this little chunk of change right here. These 3 days. Day 5, day 6, day 7. This is already going to be more than a 10-minute video. I'm sorry. I thought I could do these in 10 minutes. My rambles can't do these in 10 minutes. I tried. I do try, but not possible. So, day 5. That was the Nero I just described. So when we got out of Clewiston, we did 21 miles. So this was kind of contingent again on a lot of things. A lot of the days that you'll see, and we'll again find this together on the way we're building into these videos and coming out with these different section ones. You'll see a lot of these days that are the low mile days. There's a very strong reason. Sometimes it's us. Sometimes we just don't want to hike. But more likely than not, it's the trail dictating the miles towards us. So this 21.3, only legal place allowed that we could camp. So again, with the dam closed, we had to do this like funky road walk out of Clewiston, and it was pretty much road all day until again we could reconnect into the dike or dam. I guess they're interchangeable words. Don't know. So just kind of a funky road walk. Both of us were feeling kind of beat down in the sun, and my knee was really hurting at this point. So we rolled into this official campsite on the Florida Trail that is, you climb up the dam. Well, if you're on the dam, you don't have to climb up it, but if you're connecting back in, you climb it up, and there's kind of this like little hut right on the water. And we could camp there, or we could have pushed another, I think it was like 10 miles. And honestly, at this point, even with these days, as you see, 30s, I didn't have a 30-mile day in me at that point, 21 miles. We got there a little late because it was an out-of-town day. So I think we got to that campsite at like 5 or 6, maybe even later. It might have been 7. I'm not positive. But by the time we got there, doing another 10 miles would have meant night hiking. And honestly, we didn't really need to at that point. Still fresh in the trail. So I think Hardy might have been wanting to go on a little bit, but it was beautiful at that campsite. But he also realized my knee wasn't wanting to do much more. So again, love you, man. That's hikers look after each other, and he could tell I was hurting here. So that brings us into February 7th. We continued canal walking, dike walking, whatever it may be. This canal that we were on was very exposed. We were the highest thing around. So when you're walking around Lake Okeechobee, if you're on top of the dike or dam or canal, whatever you want to call it, you're the highest thing around. They built it elevated. So when we were on top of it, we were getting hammered by rain. Florida rain. If you watch those videos, I tried to film, but Florida rain doesn't mess around. It's a whole different type of rain. Florida rain is like drops that just drench you. One drop of the rain drenches you. So that was unique. We were soaked to the bone. The wind was ripping. It was cold. There were a lot of factors. It was not a pleasant day to hike. It wasn't on the danger threshold. Like some of those thunderstorms that rolled through were aggressive, but I don't think it was on the danger threshold. It was just extremely uncomfortable. So couple that with my knee, we ended up being like, you know what? We don't have to punish ourselves this way. The weather's going to open up, and it's going to be beautiful walking instead of suffering walking tomorrow. And we knew we were going to be going into a long section anyway. So again, you can rationalize Nero and zeros all you want when you're a hiker. But we started finding reasons like why today would have been just good to do a half day. So we ended up getting to this certain point on the dike, dam, whatever you want to call it, that you could call a taxi from the town of Okeechobee. There we go. The town of Okeechobee. And we did. Taxi came, picked us up, brought us into town. Okeechobee, I would recommend staying Okeechobee over Clewiston if you have the option and you want to spend a little more time on trail without these 2 quick stops. You will have to hitch off to it if you're doing the western route. I think if you're doing the eastern route, that's where it connects back in. I'm not positive. We didn't do the eastern route of Lake Okeechobee. We did the western, so different boats for different floats for different folks, different strokes for different folks. Yeah. So Okeechobee went in there. It was actually Super Bowl Sunday too. So I used to like football, but my life has been so consumed by hiking at this point that football has become secondary to me. But it was still nice. It was still nice to watch a Super Bowl together. Hardy was more of a fan than I was. Um, we just noshed on food. We went to the grocery store right next to us, crammed food in our mouth, and this day I think was starting to be the turning point. Day 7, I had been wearing a makeshift kind of splint for these past, I think, 3 4 days. It felt like a lifetime, but looking at the spreadsheet, it was only a couple days. It felt like a lifetime. Each step was pretty excruciating pain. Um, but this day, I think this was an essential day. So you see that the neros are very close together, but I think this day really could have potentially changed the trajectory of my hiking season 2021. Without this rest day in Okeechobee, if I started trying to aggressively step these miles off, without that extra little bit I got ice for my knee. I elevated it. I really took care of it as much as I could. Um, and without this, I don't know, let alone the Florida Trail, I don't know if the rest would have been possible. It was pretty extreme. That was, again, trail systems, the weather, the mentality, all this stuff at this point in my hiking career doesn't really worry me. What really worries me and what really worried me this year and especially this day was my knee. My knee really, really stressed me out. Um, as you can see, it says rest for knees, rain. So, yeah, it's not anything we planned. You don't plan for 7 days on trail and the first two Neros within a week. I think our loose plan going in was like we were going to use Clewiston as a stop and then power through and get past all these areas. I think that's the Swanee. I'm sorry. I'm not in that section yet. I'm gonna have to reflect. But it starts with an A. Not a Cinnabon. Wow, I'm blanking. Poof. Um, yeah. So you can't really plan for it. You got to just go with the flow. And if you try to aggressively push past that flow and tell your body what it's going to do, especially in the crucial time of the first week on trail, your body's going to tell what you're going to do. It's going to take you out of commission. Plain and simple. You need time to acclimate. Even extreme athletes. We're not including ourselves in that category because here, as you can see, not extreme athlete, but you need time to acclimate. Give yourself the time to acclimate. Don't put too many expectations on yourself the first week. We were feeling guilty about these back-to-back Neros or close enough, and as you see, we ended up stepping off hard miles. So it always works out. Don't worry about it. I'm about to sneeze. I already did sneeze. Whew. Oh, you know what I thought while I was sneezing and my eyes are watering up? I thought I could try to do a Mickey Mouse voice while sneezing, but I think that's impossible. Maybe I'm gonna practice. Yes. So that is our first section. Technically, it was 2 sections. Since there are 2 Nero days, I quantify a section as a time when you get rest, shower, laundry, resupply. That's usually how I quantify a section. So technically, there was like this section, 5 days, and then a 1 day section. But I don't know. That's the technical definition. This 7 days or the first week really just felt like one section, one chunk of trail done. We moved over map systems the next day too, so that was cool. Okay. Yeah, I think that's gonna be it for the first section video. That was fun. I hope I told the stories that I needed to tell, wanted to tell. There's so much more that I can't really unpack. We'd be here all day, folks. Each day on trail is a wonderful like tapestry of stories. I felt very I felt very cheesy as that thought was coming into my mind and saying it. and then I couldn't stop myself from saying it because I don't know. I'm cheesy. I'm weird. That's it. Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Cool. We're gonna sign off the video with a little bit of Mickey, a little bit of Mouse. My voice hurts. I haven't done that a lot in the past. So, section 1 video of hiking season 2021. Check mark. Whoo!